Hello there, a very good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. I'm Sonali Wanikapatake. Now, a spate of violent crimes in the recent past attributed to the underworld on the one hand and also to major drug halls are causing quite some consternation in Sri Lanka. They have raised concerns regarding this increasing rate of crime and also has sparked a debate on the imposition of the death penalty. Well, this has with it the cultural connotations, the religious connotations. So where are we really heading in terms of dealing with, coming to terms with the crime rate in Sri Lanka, which has been on the rise? We'll be discussing this in detail. We have a fantastic panel of guests this evening. We are joined by DIG Ajit Rohana, who is an attorney at law as well from the Sri Lanka Police. Good evening and welcome to you, Mr. Rohana.
Good evening.
We are also joined by Mr. Peter Gunawardana, Deputy Director, Sri Lanka Customs. Good evening and welcome to you. We are also joined by Mr. U.R. De Silva, who is the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Good evening and welcome back to the show. Subsequently, later on in the program, we will be also joined by Mr. Azad Solly, who is the leader of the National Unity Alliance. My first question in the first round is to Mr. U.R. De Silva, President's Counsel, President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Mr. De Silva, crime has been on the rise in Sri Lanka. As the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, do you think that we have sufficient legal mechanisms to deal with this increasing crime rate, or do you think that we need to instill fear in criminals? For example, the imposition of the death penalty in limited circumstances has caused quite a debate in the recent past. Where does this all feature? Your time starts now.
Yes. Now, when we talk about the crimes, we can't say the crime rate has gone up. So there are incidents taken place very recently. So because of that, now the media comes and say that the crime rate is going up. So I am not in agreement with that. There are certain number of crimes happening in Sri Lanka. So what we want to inform is whether we are in a position to curtail that, and are we having a mechanism, and the investigation stage is very important. As you asked from me whether the laws are okay or sufficient laws are there in our country, I would say it is. So the laws are there. So what we have to do is we have to implement those things, and the starting point is important. So how when there is a crime, how the police is going to investigate, whether they are equipped with the necessary things that are needed for an investigation. So then they have been asked to do whatever things that the politicians want. Because of that, sometimes you can't keep on going with the correct procedure. So if they are not following the correct procedure, what will happen is ultimately the case will collapse before court. So you can't blame the judge or the lawyers. If the prosecution case is so strong and the court is going to believe, then there are number of convictions. When you go through, I can demonstrate it, where the prosecution has proved to some extent in high courts, but when it goes to the Court of Appeal, most of the heroin cases, drug cases, we are getting acquittals. So why is that? So that shows that when we go through the records, when we go through the decided cases, we can say that the investigation part is not proper. So what are we going to do? Now then, how are we going to curtail that? The politicians, I would say specifically, the politicians should take the necessary action. They should come forward and say, we are totally against it and we are supporting for this type of crimes to be curtailed. Otherwise, if they are going to cover it up and if they are not going to give their fullest cooperation, merely because we say that death penalty is the solution, I say no, that is not the solution. We have to firstly start with the primary stage, where when there is a crime occurred, we must go there and correctly point out the necessary people and then proceed with the investigation and give the necessary documents to the Attorney General's department, where they can then file the cases and proceed. Otherwise, we are just hanging around and saying crimes rate is going up and then where the solution is death penalty or some other thing. So that is not the solution.
Thank you very much. We will talk about all of these issues mentioned in detail later on in the show. I'd like to move my attention to Mr. Peter Gunawardena, who is the Deputy Director at the Sri Lanka Customs. Mr. Gunawardena, what exactly is the role of the Customs Department in ensuring that Sri Lanka is protected from drug smuggling? Because we are known, the country is known as a safe haven for drug smugglers due to the strategic location as well. So where does the role of the customs feature in this equation?
That's a very pertinent question you posed at me, and I am happy to answer by starting. The objectives of the Customs Department is to collect revenue for the government, then the enforcement of laws, social protection and facilitation of legitimate trade. During this discussion, we are focusing mainly on crime. Therefore, it comes to my mind the role of the customs as enforcement agency and protector of the society. Customs officers who are deployed at the border are required to enforce not only the customs ordinance and regulations enacted under the customs ordinance. You may not know, the customs officers are empowered by legislation to implement plethora of other laws such as Import and Export Control Act, Foreign Exchange Act, biodiversity related laws, archaeological goods related laws, and so on and so forth. Customs officers in implementing those laws get the assistance of numerous agencies in implementing those laws. As you pointedly asked me, what is the role of customs in relation to this narcotic smuggling problem? I would like to say, customs officers deployed in the airports and seaports keep a vigilant eye on suspicious characters who may try to bring in narcotics, which is very harmful for our society. It destroys the social fabric of our entire nation. Therefore, customs officers have been trained to identify suspected smugglers, and also we get international assistance from agencies like Interpol, RILO, Regional Intelligence Liaison Office, and other customs organizations to get timely intelligence, and we disseminate such intelligence to the border officials for them to carry out this duty.
Right. Thank you very much for that introduction. My third question is to DIG Ajith Rohana, who is also an attorney at law. Mr. Rohana, the role of the police in combating crime. I'd like to speak about the challenges faced by the police force. I mean, sometimes the police force is, there are allegations saying that more needs to be done in training our police officers, that we need better infrastructure for police officers. I mean, most police stations, if not all, don't even have CCTV cameras. We hear of incidents, even though isolated, of police brutality sometimes, law not being properly meted out, there being no gender sensitization at police stations. So lots of issues are brought before us as laymen. However, I'd like to ask you if these are reasonable points to make. What are the genuine challenges faced by the police force in Sri Lanka, the police department, the Sri Lanka police, in combating crime?
Yes, thank you. I mean, first of all, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to TV1 for giving this opportunity to express the police view in respect of existing crime trend and especially the issues of police. Sri Lankan police force was established by the British rulers in 1865 by enacting police ordinance. Now we have completed 153 years, and in addition to that, during this period from 1865 to date, for a period of 153 years, 3,014 police officers have sacrificed their lives in performing their duties. They have been killed in action. And apart from that, approximately 2,000 officers have been permanently disabled in the war that happened during last 3 decades. And Sonali, as you raised your question, we are in the post-war period. The war ended in year 2009. Now it has been almost completed 8 years after the war. But still the main problem that we are facing is, during that wartime, LTT terrorists, other armed groups, militia groups, they brought weapons, especially by sea. Now we were not able to eliminate or remove all these weapons. The weapons are freely moving in this country. So therefore, actually we don't have underworld in this country, but we have some organized groups. So they conduct robberies, they conduct sometimes brutal crimes. But however, the challenges at the moment we are facing are technological challenges, especially in comparison, European countries, they have modern technology, they have Google survey system. Apart from that, they have other scientific evidence methods, but we are lacking of that. In addition to that, especially as Mr. Azad Solly mentioned, and everyone knows it, the media challenge. That is also a very big challenge in order to solve crimes and in order to prevent crimes. Now, I mean, every day we see the same news in the morning, sometimes through the social media, and apart from that, television and radio and newspapers. Every time it is repeated, and repeatedly it is mentioned and it is telecast, so everyone thinks that there is a crime trend in the country. But according to our statistics, we don't have a crime trend. Crimes are being decreased, but I agree with some comments that the pattern of some crimes have been changed.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mr. Ajit Rohana, a DIG and attorney at law. I'd like to open the floor for questions from our journalists. We are joined by Charitha Fernando, Naveen Majid and Charlene Benedict once again. Charitha, let's start off with you.
Thank you, Sonali. My first question is to Mr. U.R. De Silva. Mr. De Silva, last week a very senior police official alleged that criminals behind bars continue to involve, or they continue to operate their narcotic business with the use of mobile phones. So this shows that prison authorities have failed in their duty, and it also doesn't it amount to collusion of criminal activities?
No, the important factor would be, if they say so, then what is the next step? The prison authority should take the responsibility, and investigation should be gone into that and see whether they can do that type of thing. And mind you, these people who have been convicted and they are in the retro are somewhere around 16 to 18 people.
In respect of drug cases.
Drug cases, yeah.
Yeah.
So now we are concerned about those people. They are in the death cell, and then what they say, they are operating from there. I don't know whether those allegations are correct or not, because if they are doing so, the issue is these 18 people, how can they do it? Then there is something wrong inside the prison department. So if there are things happening like in that way, then the next step would be they should punish the relevant prison officers, and then if the prison department is lacking the space or facilities, then they should take necessary action. So there is an important camp where they are booster camp, where they can keep them in that place, or else newly built prison is there in where is that place? Angunakola Palace. That's a newly built one. So they can take those people and keep those people there. So instead of that, they have given the information to the president, and president is of the view that death penalty people, and they are doing this record. I am told that a person called Susei, who was detected by the police when he was talking to a person who is outside, that Susei is not a person who is being convicted and in the death cell, but he was given life imprisonment, and then he is convicted for 2 kilograms of heroin. So he was the person who was doing that according to the information we got. But if there are people more than that, then the prison department should come forward and explain how it happened. So you can't say that because of that we are going to hang those people. How are they going to differentiate? Now in our law, it is important to note that over 2 grams of heroin in possession or trafficking, the death penalty is there. How many people have been given? Sometimes they were in possession or trafficking over 2 kilograms. They were given life sentence. They were not given the death penalty because the option was there. So mostly they are hanging outside. But these people, they say that the people who are doing it, you have to go into this matter. And how are they going to rely on that? Because of the police report, if the president is going to sign the death warrant, it is not proper. You have to investigate.
DIG Rohana, have you come across a case when you apprehend someone for narcotics? Have you been able to trace that person back to someone who is in prison, who is someone convicted?
Yes, Yes, there are cases, but especially actually I would like to say that, so this is the biggest problem. So Sonali was asking the challenges that we are facing. So one of the biggest challenges is the using mobile phones or the operating perpetrators from the prison. So this is a very big problem. Now we have calculated.
So it seems that everyone knows that this is a problem.
Yeah.
So why isn't anything happening about it?
No, actually it is beyond our control. The prison authorities, so they should take action. So that is their responsibility. Now, especially when a suspect is remanded or suspect is sentenced, and if he is sent to the prison, so he is not carrying anything. He is not carrying anything. So after, he entered to the prison, how can he get all these things? The SIM cards, the mobile phones. So what is the procedure? We have to analyze that. So especially according to our investigation, and some investigations have been revealed that, so the visitors. So visitors, so they hand over all these things to the remand prisoners or the prisoners who are in the prison, or otherwise sometimes they use some methodologies in order to get these things. So therefore,
is there any money involved? If, say, for example, assuming a prison official takes a mobile phone to a convict behind bars, is there any transaction involved according to what you have?
Actually, expressly I cannot say anything about that. So however, we realize that, so they are going into the prison without anything, any SIM card, any mobile phone, any money. But when they went there, so they receive all these things. So they are operated from prison, and sometimes some hardcore criminals, especially I know that DIG in charge of Gampa area, Western Province North. So some incidents happen, some murders happen in the recent past. So after that, we conducted investigations, and we found that the perpetrators who are on the ground had been operated from the prison, from the persons who are in the prison. So therefore, this is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing. So police is one organization in the criminal justice system, but in the criminal justice system there are many institutions: the police, the judiciary, the official bar, Attorney General's Department, unofficial bar, the prison, the government analysts, forensic experts. So we need to have a very good coordination, and otherwise the police itself.
So the relevant case that you mentioned a few seconds ago, do you have any idea what happened to the people who helped this person to carry out this activity?
Yes, we have recovered some items that had been used to commit that crime, and apart from that, we have taken action in order to arrest all supporters in respect of that particular crime.
At this juncture, we are joined by our fourth guest, Mr. Azad Solly. He is the leader of the National Unity Alliance. Mr. Solly, good evening and welcome to you.
Evening,
You're only 25 minutes late.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's good to have you with us. You are very vocal on a lot of issues. So I'd like to know your opinion on this increased reportage on drug crimes in Sri Lanka, crimes in general, violent crimes. There's a lot of reportage of these crime rates. Do you think that there is a failure on the part of law enforcement agencies? That is my first question to you.
Yes, Sonali very correctly said. We have this issue, this is totally politically motivated, if I may say that, because you saw even in the previous regime, when a member of parliament was caught with drugs and the STF had surrounded, the president of the country goes by chopper and saves him. So this is history in Sri Lanka. So this is not new in Sri Lanka, and also the law enforcement authorities have not functioned to a certain extent, because they are again politically pressurized to do things. So these are the problems that the public and the police are facing. Today, if you see, if you don't bring this death penalty, I mean, I know that human rights activists are not going to allow this. Already EU has issued a statement that we are going to, you have already signed a document and you can't do it. But we have to put a stop to this. I know as a Buddhist country today, even the Mahanayakas have given their consent and say that if it's going to be for drugs.
You support the imposition of the death penalty?
Of course, not only for drugs, but every other activity, everybody who is sentenced
for
death.
Mr. Solly, according to the Asia Crime Index, which ranks capital cities in the Asian continent, one being the highest crime rate, Sri Lanka is ranked 55th. All of the countries that have a higher, all of the cities rather, that have a higher crime rate than Colombo, Sri Lanka, are death penalty countries. What makes you, given these statistics, what makes you think that in enforcing the death penalty will act as a deterrent?
No, some signal is given that Sri Lanka is going to be very strict in future, and we say no to drugs. That is one message.
But this
that
signal has been given by other countries, by Pakistan, by Afghanistan, by India, by Bangladesh, by Indonesia, by Malaysia. The only country where you can say that the death penalty has been effective is probably in Singapore. And in Singapore, executions are few and far between, because there is what you call a law-abiding society anyway. Rule of law is very strong in Singapore. If you take, for example, as a Buddhist, as a country with Buddhist culture, you take Bhutan. Bhutan has a very low crime rate. They don't have the death penalty. In the South Asian of the SAARC members, it's only Nepal, Bhutan and Sri Lanka where the death penalty is not being enforced. And Nepal, Bhutan and Sri Lanka have a lower crime rate from the SAARC members than all the other SAARC countries which have the death penalty.
That is because the rule of law is implemented. The rule of law is there. But here what happens is, it is politically interfered into. Though we came in 2015 and we said we are going to make everything independent, independent judiciary, independent police commission, independent election commission, but are they independent? Do you think they are independent?
But is the solution killing people or executing people?
Not only killing, see, I mean now see, you can see minister, who are the people who are today shouting about all these? Mostly the ministers in the present government and the deputy ministers. Even now we saw Sarath Fonseca's statement. Did you see that? What is he saying? Police one na gram dekha dala thodi, right? So this is the mentality that is being given to the public. That if you are an enemy of the police can do anything. They can even charge you for drugs. Okay, they can put drugs and charge you, and that atmosphere is not good. People always want to see a good police.
If that is the atmosphere, don't you think that it's very wrong to have the death penalty, if that is the atmosphere of the criminal justice system?
That is why the president has made it very clear. It's not going to be just the president going to sign and going to hang somebody. It's going to be with a committee. This committee is going to sit, and though the list has gone, 16 or 18 have gone, there is a committee that is going to sit. They will be all dealing with all those people, and finally it will go. You see, today just because you are going to implement it, it's not going to happen tomorrow.
But still, if you look at countries where you say there is, like for example, where there is a perception that there is rule of law and law-abiding societies, even in Singapore, there have been wrongful executions. So given the state of the criminal justice system in Sri Lanka, are you confident that there won't be a single wrongful execution?
Don't compare Sri Lanka with Singapore. One time in 1934 you can compare, because when
I'm comparing with
Sri
all
Lanka,
South Asian
he looked
countries.
at Sri Lanka and said, I'm going to make it Colombo, Singapore. But you know, we are not that today. Today, Singapore has so much of money that they have taken the money and distributed among their people. Today, we are allowing people to rob the country. The politicians are robbing the country.
I'm comprehending your position on the death penalty. What is your position on the death penalty?
My position
support of
is,
it, or are you against it?
See, tomorrow if your child is affected, only you will know the pain. Only if your child is affected, you will know the pain. What I say, if somebody is trying to destroy a family, if somebody is trying to destroy the youth of this country, he should not be hanged there. He should be brought to Golfes and hanged.
So you're saying that the justice system should be based on emotion?
Not emotion. not emotion. This is a lesson for everybody. This is my point.
Shalan.
Mr. Solly, you mentioned an important point. You said a committee will be appointed. Now, I have a big problem. I have a question here. Now, the President did make a statement and he said that the death penalty will be imposed not only on drug traffickers. He mentioned specifically that drug traffickers who continue to traffic drugs even after being placed in prison. I think I'd like to direct this question to UR De Silva. What is the process now? If they are found guilty of a drug offense, they are sentenced to death. But not all those who are sentenced to death for drug offenses will be given the capital punishment. I mean, the capital punishment will be implemented upon them. What is the exact process? Does the decision of who is the person who is carrying out drugs while in prison and the person who has only been convicted of a drug offense rest with the President or the Ministry of Justice? What's the process?
As my friend indicated, that President has appointed a committee. If they are appointing a committee and then go into the matter, of course it is reasonable. And then I say our DIG Ajit Rohana quite correctly pointed out, the Aegis Department and the legislator and the lawyers as well as the
Vice Chancellor?
Those people should get together and find out a mechanism. How are we going to solve this problem? Now, as you quite correctly pointed out, now how are we going to find out whether they have done, the perpetrators have done these unwanted things inside the prison? So how are we going to find out? Merely because you give a report to state that we found the telephone conversation was there, how are we going to identify those telephone conversations? If they say that it is from the prison, how are we going to find out those are the people who have done this? So that is a big problem. So that is why we say it is not good for the country. If we can go into this matter and find out who are the actual people who are doing these things inside the prison, then the next step would be who are the people who are allowing that. So they are aiding and abetting. They should be punished first, because they are the people who are giving them the opportunity to do those things. As Ajit Rohana said, these things are going in, and then remand prisoners, of course, various ways of getting into that. We agree. We know that it is happening. Though they are not in a position to curtail it, it is happening. But since they are in a specific places, they are in a special rooms, they were taken out for a special time period, and they were given a special meal. So then we can't say that through somebody else it goes. So definitely it should be prison authority.
And also, I would like to know, does Sri Lanka country have the legal provisions for this kind of a law? For example, now, if everybody convicted of drug offences are sentenced to death, and if the death sentence is to be implemented, as in, should all of them be sent to the gallows, or how do we have legal provisions to send only a specific list of names? As currently the story goes, 18 names have been sent. Is there legal provisions for that, or should there be an act
in
passed
our
in Parliament?
country? Death penalty can be imposed on 2 occasions. That is for murder cases, that is under penal code, and then the next one is the drug cases, where over 2 grams, and there are some other instances also in drug offences. So they are being given the death penalty. In the murder cases, of course, if it is convicted, if that person is convicted for 296, then definitely death penalty. Then for drug offences, they say that death or life. So some of the people, they are being convicted for over 500 kilos, they are being given life sentence. Some of the people around 5 grams or above, according to the police reports, if they say that it's trafficking, they've been given the death penalty. So that is the position at the moment. And
Mr.
then,
De Silva, why is there this discrepancy in sentencing? Is it because different judges have different opinions?
that's right, you are correct. So different judges, because some of the judges,
But when for example, when a higher court sets a precedent, doesn't that mean that when it comes to sentencing at least, that judges when one court sets a precedent, doesn't that mean that judges in other courts also have to follow that precedent?
So that is happening now. So that is why we say it is not appropriate to isolate these people and then say that we are going to hang them. So that is not correct, because some people, they had possession, or they trafficking charges are there for more than than 1 kilogram. So they are serving a life sentence. So there are cases, number of cases, where even if they go to higher court, that court of appeal, they affirm the conviction, but the sentence is same. So then the sentencing policy is not there. We don't have a sentencing policy. So what we say is we have to have that type of a mechanism. So from the starting point, he said, now police have been given the opportunity to investigate the matter. So but the equipment are important. Latest technology should be taken, and the customs also, they should be given more powers and then more equipment to detect those. They are doing a good service. We can see the report says that they detected a lot of people coming from the plane, and then airport it was detected, and then sea also same. So those areas should be covered, not to get in. As Azad Solly quite correct, in my first presentation I told that the politicians are the people who are behind in this. They are covering up. So then the police are can't go into these matters. They have been prevented doing. So ultimate result would be a small number of people are in jail. We are going to hang them.
Mr. Gunawardena, yeah, sorry, Diyajirowana, please.
Now, sorry.
No, yes. So I'd like to say something. I mean, I agree with comments made by both of them, but I would like to emphasize that no politician, I mean, is instructing us to not to arrest drug dealers or not to arrest offenders. So there is no political pressure on that. Actually,
at this moment,
yes,
not the previous government.
No, actually, now
you were the media spokesman at that time, yes, also.
No, that
so
time,
you can't say that.
Time also, being a police officer, I mean, according to my information, I mean, no one pressurized police to not to conduct any raid.
No, then the STF went to Mr. Lansa's house and came back without anything.
No, it's a different issue.
That is what.
So now that is that. And apart from that, especially I would like to mention this. I mean, implementing death penalty is not a very simple procedure. According to our constitution, so president's consent is absolutely required.
A must.
It is required. And according to our judicial hierarchy, the High Court is the lowest court that could impose death penalty. Then thereafter, if a person is convicted with capital punishment, so he has two chances to appeal.
Right to
so
appeal.
he can make an appeal to the Court of Appeal, and after that the superior court, the apex court of the country, the Supreme Court. So after those two appeals, if that particular person is convicted, then he is not executed. Then he is in the prison, and if the president signs the committal, then he is given capital punishment or executed.
Mr. Gunawardena?
Yes. Now the problem is this. Now everyone, I mean, my opinion is it should be implemented, because it is not the only factor in order to reduce crime, eliminate crime, but it is one of the factors. Now Singapore, they have many laws, and apart from that they have very, I mean, law abiding society, and apart from that, in our region, Singapore has the lowest crime rate in comparison to their population. So because of that, and all these, now I saw some media reports that Amnesty International, several European organizations, so they are opposing that, they are sending petitions or the letters to Sri Lankan government. So even some Western countries. So why don't they send those letters to Middle East countries? Why don't they send these letters to Singapore? And many countries, even the United States also.
Even
so
America,
the United
yes,
States,
yeah.
so they pressurized to impose capital punishment in respect of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein a couple of years ago. So they are talking of, I mean, their human rights and everything. But as a poor nation, so every time if we are going to obey with all these instructions given by them, so how can we protect this country?
DIG,
the capital punishment is, I mean, not implemented in the recent past. Since the human civilization, it has been implementing because in order to correct the society.
DIG Rona, I was just pointing out to Mr. Solly that if you take the SAARC member countries, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka,
Bangladesh,
Maldives, Bangladesh. Of these 8 countries, the lowest crime rates are in Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan.
Yeah.
Bhutan being the lowest.
Yeah.
These 3 are the only countries that have a moratorium on the death penalty. The other 5 have the death penalty and they have higher crime rates.
Yes.
So what is the statistical justification for imposing the death penalty in Sri Lanka?
Population.
No,
Check that also. If you take the population of Pakistan and India, we are just nothing. Right? So crime rate will definitely be very,
So
very
if you
high.
check our
But only thing
population
is,
with
see, the death penalty
with the
was
other
not a new
countries,
thing that
with
has been
Nepal.
introduced. Death penalty is not a new thing. Death penalty has been there in Sri Lanka throughout, but it was not implemented.
Mr. Solly, the death penalty has not been effective in these countries in curbing the crime rate. Even in Indonesia, even in Malaysia, it has not been effective in curbing the crime rate. What makes you think that it will be effective in Sri Lanka?
I think it will be effective. This is my very gut feeling, is it will be effective.
Right. Thank you very much, Shalan. We have to go in for a short commercial break. We will be right back. Stay with Face the Nation. If you're just joining us, this is Face the Nation. We're discussing the increased reportage of crime in Sri Lanka in the recent past and the debate surrounding imposition of the death penalty. My first question in this round is to DIG Azad Solly from the Sri Lanka Police. He's in charge of the Western Province North, also an attorney at law. Mr. Rohana, initially you spoke of the challenges faced by the police force. You pointed out that there are technological challenges faced. What do you have to say about the allegation that police officers are not motivated enough to implement and enforce the law because of the fact that there's issues inherent in salary structures, reward structures, and the delays in promotions, these lack of structures in the system have resulted in bribery, corruption being on the rise. These are some of the allegations that the police face day in, day out. What have you got to say about it?
Yes, actually, I could say that, I mean, there are allegations against police officers, but you know, it is very few. I mean, our strength is 83,000. So sometimes 5 to 6 officers, they are arrested by the Bribery Commission yearly, and apart from that, some officers also involved in corrupt practices. So I admit that. But the majority of the police officers, you know, they are paid only 40,000 rupees per month, but sometimes they get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and they come to the road, or they start their mobile patrols by 5 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the night.
So these are the exact issues that I'm talking about.
No, let me talk. Then they perform their duties. But if you take the recent cases, all murder cases, now, I mean, in the recent past, there was a case in Anuradhapura, we arrested the suspect, and another case happened in Matara, we have arrested suspects, and all the important cases in respect of murders, all the suspects have been arrested. All the important robberies have been solved. But, you know, as you said, so there is a problem with their promotions, and apart from that, sometimes problem with their salaries. But I would like to say we have a reward fund. Monthly, we have now, I mean, IGP has instructed all officers in charge of police divisions to pay that reward monthly. So they are motivated. Sometimes, according to our system, as I mentioned earlier, we have some technological barriers. So the modern technology, every time it is not adopted. Now, interrogation, interview methods, European countries or the developed countries, they have adopted several modern technologies, but we don't have that. So we need it. And in the recent past, I mean, couple of years ago, automated fingerprint system we introduced. It is very successful, and apart from that, all the police stations are electronically linked at the moment. So if a suspect is arrested, within 3 minutes time, his description, his name, address, or the nickname, pet name, everything is transferred to all police stations. We have 493 police stations. So therefore, in comparison to other countries in our region, I believe that our police organization is good, but we have some lapses and we are lacking of some resources. So we are in the process of developing.
Mr. Rohana, I am not even for a moment discounting the Herculean role played by the police force of Sri Lanka. Through this program, we try to draw the authorities' attention to issues that are endemic and inherent in the system, so that policymakers will actually feel embarrassed and find solutions to these problems, because it is in their mandate, it is in their purview. So I'd like to ask you, with regard to the problems faced by the salary structures, maybe there is lack of job rotation. Sometimes we see traffic policemen from morning till evening, all 5 days, it's the same police officer. I mean, it's humanly not possible to live your life that way. I mean, job rotation is a very simple concept. So I'm sure that if we could get experts involved in this process, or academics, other stakeholders, we can easily transform this and make it a little bit better. Don't you agree?
Yes, I agree, because you know, now our duty is not confined to the duties that have been enforced by other police organizations in the developed world. Now, for instance, you know, annually we receive 1 million minor complaints.
Right.
It is called Sulu Paminili.
Sure.
In police stations, we have Sulu Paminili Ansiya, Vivida Paminili. So we generally receive 1 million complaints. So the majority, land disputes, family disputes, maintenance matters, those are not relevant to police duties. In comparison, sometimes the people who are in the United Kingdom or Australia or in European countries, so they are listening this program, I think they realize my version. So in Italy, last year, the whole country, in comparison to Sri Lanka, it is, I think, 40 times. But they had only 2 complaints in respect of land disputes, because they don't have that type of disputes in European world. They don't have land disputes or the family disputes, so they go to a different institution there. So the family council there, the local government institutions are there. But every time the police, we need to carry others' burdens. Now,
Right.
if there is a problem with wild elephants, so there is a separate department. But finally, the burden comes to the police. So
Right.
if there is an issue in respect of road development authority, it is not motorable. The people come to the road and they conduct protest campaign. So finally, it is our baby. So many things. So every time, so other institutions in the system, so they don't work or they don't call. I mean, I am not criticizing them. But every time, Now, let's say the issues in respect of higher education institutions. So there are issues. So the students, they are demanding hostels and all these things. So sometimes the contents of the degree program. So finally, when they conduct a protest campaign, when they are blocking the Lipton roundabout or the the University Grants Commission, so automatically, so it would be a problem of police. So we are facing with that situation. So weekly, approximately 100 protest campaigns are conducted in Colombo area. So every time we need to deploy our officers in order to prevent or the divert that type of situation. So how can we conduct crime? But in comparison, in the UK, so they have designated places, so they don't block the roads, I mean on weekdays, so they don't have that type of issues.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ajit Rohana, for that clarification. I'd like to very swiftly move my attention to Mr. U.R. De Silva, President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Now, with regard to the point that Mr. Ajit Rohana made, where due to the lack of awareness, perhaps, among people, all the complaints, including these minor complaints or Sulu Paminili, just are bombarded with the police station, thus, reducing the time and the resources that the police have to combat crime. So, with regard to this problem, could you give a solution, Mr. De Silva? There are thousands of lawyers passing out each year now. So can't we, I am aware that the Bar Association of Sri Lanka conducts multiple island-wide legal awareness and legal aid programs. But can't we streamline a process, perhaps in collaboration with the Ministry of Justice, the Legal Aid Commission, to have a permanent or a permanent office in each district at least? Can't you make a recommendation so that, people can bring their complaints and get some advice with regard to issues that they face?
In our country, as Ajit Rohana pointed out, people used to go there. Every time they have a small problem even, they run to the police station and they ask the police officers to come and see these problems, and then every Saturday and Sunday they are having a lot of inquiries. Lot of people there in the police station. So instead of that, as you asked, Sonali, it is important to use the mediation board.
Sure.
And then the Legal Aid Commission, every area where there is a courthouse, you have that Legal Aid Commission office. So if you can get more people into that, more lawyers into that, and then have a clinic like that, and then give necessary instruction. The important point would be, now we found that during the law week period, people came running to us, and they divulge their problems, and they want us to hear those things and give a small solution. That's all. So for that purpose, if they are going to the police station, they are wasting time, and they are wasting their police time also. So as you quite correctly pointed out, we should have a mechanism where the Bar Association should come forward, and along with the ministry as well as the Legal Aid Commission, if we can have a panel where every Saturday and Sunday they can inform the people. If they have problems, they can come as small problems where they family dispute, small land problems, so they can give necessary instructions for them to go to a mediation board or solve their problems then and there. So it is important. Otherwise, we are all going there and interfering their activities. It is not good. And at the same time, I was insist this also to enhance the knowledge of the police people, because you talked about their other problems, but now after the war is over, they don't have this opportunity to enhance their knowledge. So we, as the Bar Association, we personally go to their places, and DIG Ajit Rohana has conducted special seminars for the police people to enhance their knowledge. And then the other important thing is equipment, latest equipment, technology, and then DNA. So then they should be given that opportunity to know those things and how to use those things. Even if they detect something, they don't know how to use as evidence. So those things are very essential if you are going to curtail this crime rate.
So as the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, you are willing to undertake to assist the police, Sri Lanka police, by facilitating something like this?
Yes, of course, because we have a lot of lawyers coming in. As you quite correctly pointed out, 1,000 lawyers, new lawyers are coming into our profession. So we must give them the opportunity to help the people by assisting them to have a dialogue like that. So if we can arrange those people into various areas, they will do a good job. I think it is our duty to help them.
Thank you so much.
Apart from that, I mean, we have implemented in the recent past Sri Lanka, Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Mr. UR De Silva and I, we implemented several projects in respect of, educating police officers.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I move my attention to Mr. Peter Gunawardana, Deputy Director of Sri Lanka Customs. We spoke about the issues faced with regard to narcotics and the role of the customs, of Sri Lanka Customs. Is it accurate to say that Sri Lanka Customs has a serious concern when it comes to understaffing? Would you say that your office is understaffed?
What I am permitted to say is that according to the cadre, we can say that the cadre has not been filled. But the present government is taking steps to fill the cadre gradually. Due to various constraints, the officers' cadre has not been filled, but even recently, officers have been enlisted to the post of Assistant Superintendent of Customs, Inspectors of Customs, and Customs Guards. Large number of people, young people, have been recruited. Although, as you pointed out, it was understaffed, but now the situation is vastly improving.
Okay, thank you for being politically correct. But since there seems to be an issue, we'd like to raise the attention of the authorities, and I believe Sri Lanka Customs comes under the purview of the Finance Ministry.
Yes.
And the Minister of Finance. Let's also talk a bit about the issue of money laundering. Money laundering, that concept has also been on the news, in the media, in the recent past especially. What's the role of Sri Lanka Customs, and how does money laundering feature in this?
Let me firstly explain to the public viewing this program what money laundering is. All of us know what is laundering. Making something dirty a clean one. Money laundering is making dirty money clean. As we know, when the economy is diversified, you get black money, proceeds from black economy. So that money cannot be utilized lawfully for any economic gain unless it is converted into legitimate income. So money laundering is the process the perpetrators of money laundering offense engage in to make dirty money, clean money. How do we detect such money launderers? Money launderers has the habit of carrying large amount of cash across borders. The proceeds they earn from their unlawful activities in some other foreign land is brought to another country and introduced to the economy of that second country, so that the proceeds of their business in the second country can be claimed to be legitimate money. How does customs officers engage in curbing money laundering? Customs officers are deployed in the border, the port and the airport. The passengers who bring large amounts of cash are advised to declare same to the customs. According to the new Foreign Exchange Act, the limit is US$ 20,000. But if the passenger intends to take back any sum above US$ 5,000, then such sums, even though they are less than $20,000 or equivalent, has to be declared to the customs at the time of arrival. Some passengers avail this opportunity and make declarations to the customs. Sometimes customs officers intercept them upon their arrival and make them to declare. Some others take the chance and try to pass through the customs, and if they are unlucky, they are caught by the customs, and the customs officers, upon interdiction, confiscate or forfeit such cash for non-declaration, which is an offence under the section 107A(1) of the Customs Ordinance. Similarly, at the departure, if the declaration is not made to the customs officers can interdict such passenger and call for a declaration. And if the declared amount is in excess of the permitted amount, such amounts also can be dealt according to the law. Here I have to emphasize, there was a regime change recently. Earlier, the carrying of foreign currency was governed by Exchange Control Act. Now, a paradigm shift has taken place in this enforcement regime. Why I say that is, the Exchange Control Act was abolished recently, last year, end of last year, and a new Foreign Exchange Act was brought in. The limits were enhanced, and foreign currency movements, which was a restricted item under the Exchange Control Act, has now been removed. Therefore, in the enforcement angle, we find it little challenging under the Foreign Exchange Act to deal with the perpetrators who carry large sums of foreign currency across the borders.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Gunawardena, for that clarification. My final question is to Mr. Azad Solly, Leader, National Unity Alliance. In this enterprise of crime prevention, Mr. Solly, it is often said that it is only the small fish that get caught, while the big fish are at bay. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'd like to draw your attention mainly to then the implications when it comes to the political structure as a whole. Where are we going wrong?
Actually, we have a very good police department. They can do a lot, and they are doing a lot. If you see all the crimes that have taken place in the recent past, how active they were, how fast they could arrest people, all that was possible. But how are we supporting them? They don't have proper vehicles to go. When the crime is happening, when they call 119, for a police station to go in a vehicle, it takes hours to go there. They don't have a proper jeep to go. See, earlier the police department had the best vehicles called the Land Cruisers from Japan. But now, in 2001, Mr. Vikram Singh came as Prime Minister. He bought all this Indian stuff. The Tata jeeps were bought that can't even go. So most of them in the station, you give a tallu, push and then only start and go. So those are things that we have to really think, right? These are things, not only equipments, right? See, computers are a must. Today everybody is using computers. Every police station must have computers. You must have people who can type in all 3 languages, right? Things can be fast, things can be handled. And even this mediation board, that should not be sitting on a Saturday, Sunday. That should be sitting every day. Because as they say, now what happens is, when the complaint is made to the police decides whether this must go to the mediation board or to courts. Right? So before that, what we say is, before even coming to the police station, if they can go to the mediation board and settle, most of the problems will be settled. Because those are, as he said, 70% of the cases are very minor cases, which could be settled. If 2 people can sit and talk, definitely. Home affairs, especially husband and wife's matters, children's matters, all that is all are coming to the police station. Those things can be settled. So we have not that we don't have the people, we have the people, we have the. Now one incident I'll tell you, how efficient the police was. When they arrested me, they were behind me for the last 4 days, and that night also I was not getting caught to the police. But due to the pressure that was brought for my family, no, let us get caught once and for all in one place. That is why I had to stay in Kolanawa in a friend's place, and I got caught. Okay, now good. And I was brought to the 4th floor. And everybody in the cell had about 4 cell phones with them inside the 4th floor. They were asking me whether I needed. I said, no, I don't want any calls, because now I have been totally arrested and kept. I don't need any calls. I was there. Sonali, then one person, while I was very critical, on the 7th day I was taken to hospital, they asked me, sir, Munari Gedarta Panadiya Dendonide. I said, just tell my lawyer that I am I've been taken to the hospital. Sonali, will you believe, my lawyer in return called the police and checked, is so and so taken to hospital? Lawyer. See the mistake he made. Immediately the police came to the cell, caught the 20 inmates who were there with me, hammered them mercilessly, and found all the sins. Immediately they caught. So that sort of efficiency we have, but we are not utilizing it. We are not utilizing it. If we give them the support, and political interference should not be there. This has been right throughout. We are a government that came saying that it is going to be good governance, no interference, all independent commissions. So if it is independent commission, let us allow them to be independent without going to safeguard as you say, the big sharks are still outside. Now, when this government came to power, what did we say? We were talking about money that was in the UAE bank account. Even the statement of that account was shown to the public. Bank statements were shown to public. What happened? The entire money has today been withdrawn in Dubai. Right? What can the police do? What can the investigators do? Nothing. Because the UAE government is not letting it go. Now Udayanga Veeratunga cannot be bought. Why? We don't have a treaty with UAE. So there are issues. So the government will have to think about those things, they have to create those things and see that. Just see, now most of the underworld figures are today operating from Dubai. We are unable to bring them down. So that machinery must be done, the support has to be given, police must be equipped well so that they can handle crime better.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Azad Solly, for the round of questioning. Let's start off with Charitha.
Thank you, Sonali. DIG Rohana, now Mr. Azad Solly mentioned about big sharks. As I am aware, there are 4 needed in the Gulf region, 4 fugitives wanted in Sri Lanka in the Gulf region. Is it actually, as Mr. Solly said, the delay, is it because of treaties or bilateral relations? Why is there a delay in extradition?
Yes, actually, as he mentioned, so there are wanted persons in Gulf region, Middle East region.
And there's one in Singapore.
Yes, according to extradition procedures, so if that particular country is not willing to hand this particular over to the other state, so generally we are not able to carry him to Sri Lanka. So that is the problem. We need to have treaty agreements according to extradition laws, and apart from that, our Mutual Legal Assistance Act, it is being amended at the moment, I think. But that particular country where that suspect is remaining is not willing to give that suspect, so we are not able to get him down. It is correct. But we have taken considerable steps in order to arrest them and to get down them into Sri Lanka.
To your knowledge, do these people have investments in the Gulf region?
Yes, some of them.
Considerable investments?
So I don't have such information, but I have been attending several conferences in respect of these issues. So there are investments.
So if extradition is a problem, why was the prime suspect in the treasury bond scandal allowed to leave to Singapore?
No, actually, I am not able to answer that question because that investigation is going on at the moment, and apart from that, FCID is handling that case. So I don't have sufficient sufficient information on that. So therefore, I am not able to answer.
I want to ask you a question based on this issue of the treasury bonds and the fugitive in Singapore. Now, this was, of course, before you were elected as president of the Bar Association. This was during the term of your predecessor. But it was alleged recently through media reports that the company at the center of this bond scam had given 2.5 million rupees to the Bar Association of Sri Lanka in 2016, 1 year after the alleged bond scam. And because Mr. Gunawardena was talking about money laundering as well, could this be construed as an incident of money laundering? And also, has the Bar Association launched an inquiry into this?
Only thing is that now, as you said, it was not happening during my time. That does not mean I can't say I don't want to say something. But I have inquired into that, and I have gone through that. It was during our Law Asia time, where we have several committees to find out necessary funds for this particular Law Asia. So then they ask various people to contribute. So as a institution, we are doing business at that time. They came forward and they gave this money. So it was audited, and it came to our accounts, and it was audited, and it was perfectly there, as the money belongs to Bar Association, and it was utilized to inauguration ceremony of the Bar Association Law Asia Conference. So that was there. But at that point, there were some talks about the money laundering or they are doing some illegal things, but it was not perfectly elicited whether they have done this bond scam incident or not. So subsequently, we found that this presidential commission and then Aegis department intervened, and there were a lot of inquiries. So during that period, it was not there. So I think that those lawyers who were there in that Law Asia has nothing to do with this bond scam, and they have not gone into this bond scam matter, and during that period, as a commercial institution, they gave us as others, and their names were there in that souvenir, and we have published them as our sponsors of one of the people. So that is there. But the fact remains, after that, if somebody is going to get that money subsequently, it will amounts to some sort of aiding, abetting thing by knowing very well you are using that money. So if it is so, then we have to do something with regard to that. But with regard to the allegation that or the incident that the media has pinpoint, I don't think there is a problem.
Mr. De Silva, I understand your position. I mean, getting a corporate sponsorship is not illegal. But at the same time, given that this happened 1 year after the bond scam, and the Presidential Commission of Inquiry found that these were illegally made profits, could this be legally construed as an incident of money laundering, whereby they try to give money, whereby they try to legitimize their earnings?
No, only thing is they were doing a lot of business, so we don't know on what basis they have given us, so we can't categorize those things. That is the very reason. But after pinpointing them as the people who have done this bond scam, then we have to be very careful. So we have to find out whether it is coming from that end, and we have to do something. But earlier, as you quite correctly pointed out, we can't find out whether this is some other transactions where they have done and this is the bond scam money or not. We can't find out. That's
Nadim, going into this bar association and all that, those are sponsorship, no?
Yes.
That doesn't come under money laundering. Money laundering comes out when it goes out of Sri Lanka.
Mr. De Silva, now in terms of the law, I just need your opinion on this. In terms of the law, do you think that there was anything that blocked authorities from preventing Arjuna Mahendran leaving Sri Lanka?
No, only he at that point when he was leaving, there was no allegation against him directly, and there was no warrant issued. There was no communication given to him not to leave. There was no such order taken by the police from the magistrate court. So if it is not so, being a Singaporean, he has gone to that country according to the...
Given that Mr. Mahendran left for overseas before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry concluded or provided its report, given what was divulged during the term of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, do you see it as a shortcoming on the part of law enforcement, or of the Attorney General's Department, or of the Controller General of Immigration and Immigration, that Mr. Mahendran, in spite of everything that was being revealed at the time in the Commission, was still able to leave the country?
No,
is that a shortcoming there?
Of course there is. But the only thing is, police were not doing that investigation at that point.
Exactly.
So that
was only a commission.
As a commission.
But the Attorney General's Department was leading evidence.
But they can't take any action without the proper conclusion of the this commission. So they have finalized it, and then they have given the report.
In the meantime, didn't they have a legal provision by which they could have sought to impound his passport?
of course, if the investigation was done at the same time by the police, of course they can do it. But at that point, they were not doing. They were collecting lot of information through the commission, and finally commission has decided, and then only the recommendations were given, and then after that only the Aegis department started inquiring into.
Mr.
Mr. De Silva,
one question to you. Now we're talking about crime, prevention of crime. I think we need to, as a country, also focus on criminality and why criminals become criminals. Because sometimes we feel that in Sri Lanka, very little attention is paid to the concept of holistic rehabilitation and reintegration. Because the moment you're convicted for even a minor offense and you go back into society, you are shunned and shamed. So that mindset still exists, the stigmatization, it still exists in Sri Lankan society. We've seen in other countries, even in the prison structure, these people are taught skills. For example, an award-winning chef will come and teach them how to make pizza, or another life skill, so that they have a livelihood when they go back, when they are not alienated in society. How do you view this concept of holistic rehabilitation of prisoners, of wrongdoers, of criminals? Why do we ostracize them so much? Why can't we change this mindset? It's 2018. We talk about rights and all of that, but this is a huge mistake that we're making.
Very good question, Sonali. Actually, the police, not only it is not confined to Sri Lankan police, but whole police organizations in comparison. We have two roles. The first one is preventive role, and the second one is detective and investigative role. So, if a detection is made, so it is a sole responsibility of police, and if it is an investigation, so that is our responsibility. But preventing crime is not the sole responsibility of police. It is everyone's responsibility. Now, for instance, if we take this drug problem, now according to the information that I receive, regularly, daily, 15 to 20 youths, they join the drug addict society. It means new new entrants are there. So, 20 into 365, it means for a year. So, what is generally 8,000 people, they go to their society. So, in comparison, after 10 years, it is 80,000. So, this is the drug problem is the biggest problem in this country. It is connected to all these crimes. Now, the people, I don't like the word, underworld activities, but organized crimes. Drugs are connected to all these organized crimes. As she asked that, question, the people who are the suspect who are in Gulf region. So they are involved in these activities. So that is the biggest deal or the biggest business that is making black money in the world, drug problem. But the police or the customs or the immigration or the Sri Lanka Navy, we are not able to eliminate this problem without the support of the society. So the school teachers, the parents, the religious leaders, so everyone, so they have a responsibility. On one hand, we can detect cases and we can, reduce the supply. But on the other hand, the society has a responsibility to curtail the customers. If there are no customers, then there are no cases. Now, in my area, regularly, 5 to 6 housebreaking cases are reported. Jewelries, money, other valuable items are stolen in the nights. So they break the house, and apart from that, they break the cupboard or the other drawers, and they take money out. So every time, once the investigations are conducted, so it reveals that this drug addicted people. So they involved in these crimes. Why? Because you know, so if daily they need at least 2 packets of heroin. So 1 packet is 3,000. So if you take 2 packets, it is 6,000. So 6 into 30, it is 180,000 per month. So even a government servant, so we are not able to afford it that money. So therefore, compulsory. So they need to break houses, or otherwise, so they are not, alive. So therefore, this is the biggest problem in the country. So crime prevention mechanism should be implemented, and especially apart from the conventional policy of the police, in order to address this issue, many police organizations in the world, so they adopt a principle called community policing. So what is community policing? In 1918, Sir Robert Field, the founder of modern police organizations under British concept, he said, police are the public, public are the police. So every time we need the support of the society. Otherwise, police itself alone is not able to curtail this crime, prevent crimes. But we have some mechanisms. We have implemented several systems, community methods in the country in order to, not to eliminate, but to reduce this problem.
Mr. Rohana, don't you think that it's a good idea to perhaps try out new innovative methodologies to look into this aspect of holistically sort of preventing crime? And perhaps, perhaps in your area, Western Province North, can't you get a directive from the IGP? I'm just saying, can't you get a directive from the IGP and just implement maybe a neighborhood watch, maybe, Alcoholics Anonymous, Drug Addicts Anonymous, things like this. These are very simple concepts that have been done for years and years very successfully in other countries. So can't we look at now new ways of doing this? Yes,
we are looking at very innovative innovative systems we need to implement, and we have civil defense committees at village level, but it is successful 60%. But every time these youths, especially young people, nowadays, we are not able to detect these drug dealers because, they use the modern technology, internet, Vibe, WhatsApp, everything. Now, they are not visible. So sometimes they send the customer, if he needs a packet of heroin, so he sends a message to that particular person through Vibe or WhatsApp. Then he need to pay that money. There are so many methods to pay that money, or through the banks or otherwise, through the mobile phones. So the money is paid, and he receives the message from that particular dealer that, okay, your packet is there under that culvert, under that the post or somewhere. Then he goes there and he collect it. So that type of mechanisms they adopt. So we need modern technology, but I am happy to say that during the year 2017 and 18, so we as a South Asian country, we have detected the largest amount of heroin and cocaine. Even India, they were not able to detect that type of amount. Very, 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 very big amounts of cocaine.
Yes, Mr. Solly, yes.
What Rohana says is, it is the duty of the parents also.
Yes.
See, the biggest role they can play to safeguard the youth in this country is the parents. Today, if you see, the father is working, the mother is working. So they don't have time for their children. They don't know what the children are doing, which class they are going to, what is the phone they are given him, how much he is using on his phone, what is the internet, what are the games that he is playing. These are things that the parents can just watch. They don't do that. They simply just allow the child to go wherever they want, and the child goes alone, comes back alone, so there is no way that they can curb. So it is not only the responsibility of the police, the parents have a bigger role to play in their child's life.
Right. Thank you very much. Charita, you have a question.
Talking about crime prevention.
Yeah.
Now, it seems that in Sri Lanka, now, for example, a youth that is, say, new to narcotics, right?
Yeah.
You go and land him in prison with hardcore prisoners, right? Why aren't we looking at proper rehabilitation centers? I mean, that's what a lot of other countries do, right? Because once you put a young person with, criminals, perhaps he gets recruited in the prison itself for a larger network of criminal activity. And once he comes out, he's not going to stop his behavior. It's only going to get aggravated.
Yes. Now, I mean, generally, the law in respect of drugs in our country is dangerous drugs and opium. Ordinance that was enacted by the British rulers in 1929. But an amendment was brought to that particular enactment in 1984. I mean that amendment has introduced this death penalty also in the first time, apart from the offences that are embodied in the penal code, imposing death penalty. However, and apart from that, another two acts have been introduced by our legislature. Number one, the Act on Dangerous Drugs Control Board. So, and apart from that, another act has been introduced in the recent past in order to rehabilitate these addict people. So, however, I mean, police, we have a limited role on that. So, generally, the other stakeholders like Dangerous Drug Control Board and the judiciary, but they have a role. But in addition to that, voluntary, if that particular person, if he is willing to be rehabilitated, yes, so we can do it, and we can produce him before a medical officer and get the certificate, and we can send him to some there are centers. But I agree with you to a certain extent that the Dangerous Drug Control Board, police, and all the other stakeholders, so we have a big role to expand that particular system.
Dear Jerome, throughout this conversation, a constant theme that has arisen is that there is a lack of funding and resources for law enforcement authorities, including the police, the customs. We constantly hear of vacancies and the inability to fill cadre at the Attorney General's department, for example. Mr. Solly was just saying that there needs to be computers and typists in all 3 languages at all of the police stations. All of these resources, how does the budgeting work for this? For example, when the government draws up its annual budget, do you have a mechanism by which you can communicate your needs to them and ensure that these needs are fulfilled?
Yes, actually, I agree and admit that there are some lapses, lacking of resources is correct. But last year, the salaries of police officers, it had been increased. In addition to the salary, 40% of the salary is given to police officers
as allowances,
as an allowance, and apart from that, ARDA's allowance, BATA, it is given. And the police reward fund is there. So
But in terms of like material resources, like yes, crime labs, and I'm not sure what kind of resources, tactical gear, and for raids and etc. I'm not sure what kind of resources you need, but these resources, like, is there a means, is there a mechanism by which you communicate this to the finance ministry when they're drawing up the budget for each year? For example, the police comes under the Ministry of Law and Order. So when the expenditure head of the Ministry of Law and Order is being drafted, or in the case of customs, when the expenditure heads of the Ministry of Finance is being put together, is there a way, is there a means by which you can communicate your needs as the public officials to the political authorities who are deciding how much money to allocate, not just for the salaries, the wages they have to pay anyway, but for the resources that you need to do your jobs effectively? Is there a budgeting mechanism that you have?
Yes, it's there. So we have a Deputy Inspector General of Police logistics. His position is DIG logistics. So he is doing all these things. Now especially, now we suggested a police university last year, and now it is being established at the moment, and especially we believe that, strongly believe that we need officers with skills, and we need to create professionalism. We have professional officers, but especially in comparison to Western countries. So the professionalism in the police department, we need to enhance their knowledge and skills, and we need to adopt the modern technology, interrogation and interview methods, and you know, especially now if we think of this traffic fines also, we are trying to introduce, I mean, to pay fines to mobile phones, but it doesn't mean that, so we are going to detect more and more traffic cases. But I mean, in comparison to other countries in the region, we have adopted several modern technological methodologies into our Sri Lankan police organization.
Thank you very much.
But it is not sufficient.
Before going in for a short commercial break, we have 2 questions from Charita.
No, if I may add to
Sure.
her question,
Yeah.
there is a special law where he has mentioned, where it says without sending him to prison, police, if they know somebody is a drug addict, they can take him to the doctor, that is JMO, and get a set. Then JMO will decide whether he is a drug addict or not, and he will recommend that he is a drug addict and he should be rehabilitated. And on that certificate itself, the magistrate, when he was produced before the magistrate, without sending him to remand prison, he can straight away send him to the Kandakaduwa Rehabilitation Center, where they give a good rehabilitation program for 6 months to 12 months, and they will be rehabilitated there. So that's a good program recently introduced.
Thank you very much, Mr. UR De Silva, for that very pertinent point. Charita?
Yes, Mr. Gunawardena, I like to shift attention on large consignment of not heroin, what's the other? Cocaine, yeah. Yes. I believe it's not intended for the Sri Lankan market, because there are very low consumption of cocaine in Sri Lanka. So the large detections that you've made, have you traced its route? Where did it originate from, and where was it intended to the final destination?
Yes, we did. As you correctly said, that cocaine is a very high-priced narcotics. The population here cannot afford to have cocaine. But the cocaine that was imported along with sugar has originated from Brazil, and containerized cargo has transited through Portugal, and in Portugal, where the transit time was found to be less than 24 hours, the cocaine remained in the container and reached the final destination, Sri Lanka. And
final destination was Sri Lanka?
Final destination of sugar was Sri Lanka. If the containers left in the Portugal Lisbon port for more than 24 hours, it would have been removed, because the cocaine was found in traveling bags and kept above the sugar stacks.
At the entrance of the door.
As you open the door of the container, then a person can remove easily and close the container door. But when the time was tight, if it is less than 24 hours, the transit time, they had no time to remove the cocaine.
So it was actually intended for Europe, but they didn't have time to remove it.
Nadeem, you remember we discussed about this earlier, and I said the same thing. This is on transit only, this business is taking place. But as he says, within 24 hours if the ship leaves, they are unable to take it out.
And we have found out that in certain instances, the importer was quite unaware that the goods came, because after the inspection, the container with sugar had gone to the importer's godown, if the importer was aware, he would never have left cocaine to be examined at the customs examination yard and then taken to the godown. Therefore, we can safely assume that it was never intended to the Sri Lankan market, but to the European market.
But was it a random check, or how do you decide on which container to check?
Well, we adopt risk management techniques in selecting a cargo to be examined. As you know, if the 100% of cargo has to be examined, then it will take years to clear the cargo imported in 1 week. Therefore, we focus on high risk countries, and there are several risk criteria which I cannot disclose in this forum, on which the customs officers will target the cargo and open the cargo coming from countries or suppliers which are ranking higher in the risk metrics.
Thank you very much.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Now, like the organized crime, you have the organized customs also. We must say that. There are containers coming with organized arrangements. Those will not be checked. That is happening in Sri Lanka. In history, we have seen that is happening. That goes to the yard also, no checking, nothing. Not only vehicles are coming, sugar is coming, a lot of other things are coming. So there are things that are organized. Now see, if you see the gold import, right? In Sri Lanka, we had only 0.5% duty on gold. Just because our balances, check and balances doesn't come right, when Mangala Samaravira was out of the country, the acting minister takes over and he increases that 0.5% to 15%, allowing the smugglers to make money. Today, you get most of the gold coming in. And how many are we catching? Just 1 a day or 2 a day.
Yeah.
The rest are coming to the market. Why are we trying to say money? Our balances, 750 million, we have to pay, all that. No. But here, the gold is coming. What was happening earlier was the gold being imported and again it is going to India. That was the accusation, right? Am I right?
Mr. Gunawardana, you can respond to Mr. Solly's allegations.
Right. Now, what we have in the customs is a reflection of the cross-section of the society. Society is not comprised of 100% angels. From the society, a segment is selected to serve in the customs department as well as in other departments. So I cannot give a character certificate to everyone, but as panelist Mr. Ajit Rohana said, majority of the customs officers are honest customs officers.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Gunawardana.
there can be black sheep, I do not rule out, but that does not mean it should be utilized in a forum like this to sling mud at the entire department, which is serving the society, in protecting the society. Therefore, I say that customs officers are doing their duty to the maximum with the available resources.
Right. Thank you very much, Charita. You have 1 minute. Yes. We have to go in for a commercial break.
DIG Ajit Rohana, now you mentioned earlier that the proliferation of illicit firearms is a cause for the crime rate in the country, right? Yes. One of the reasons.
Yeah.
So, has anyone done a survey on the on illicit firearms in Sri Lanka, and do you have a central forensic database so that you can trace these firearms to its source?
No, actually, according to our statistics, so there are numbers now. Air Force, Sri Lanka Army, Navy, Police. So we have numbers, but you know, I mean, from Tamil Nadu to Jaffna. From Valvati Ture, that area. So we don't know the amount that the LTT terrorists brought into Sri Lanka. So therefore, no one is able to, I mean, clarify the number in respect of firearms. And apart from that, there are firearms, locally made firearms like Galkataks and other things are there. So however, I mean, in comparison to the other countries in the world, war was in existence like South Sudan, Haiti, or the Kosovo. We have detected considerable number of firearms during this period in the post-war.
Thank you
So
very much.
there's no
We're going
survey.
for our final break.
Just a clarification before you go on the final round. Now, Mr. Ajit Rohan was saying about these firearms. My question was, I'm very thankful to the police department for having shifted the police media spokesman now. Because media spokesman who performed after these 5 or 6 incidents that took place was not that right. Nobody could say that he was doing the right thing, because the allegations that were made with regard to a woman putting out a video out, all that, I think you also condemn it, I also condemn it. It should not have happened, number one. Number two is, all these killings were not done by Galkatas. All highly sophisticated weapons were used in all these killings. Now my question is, from where are these weapons coming? Who is supplying this to the gangsters? Is it the police? Is it the army? Is it the underworld characters getting it from some country? From where it is coming? And have we done a research, as you very correctly pointed, from where it is coming is never been searched. The murder is done, and you don't tell on media, we are going to find that killer. That is what we expect from the police. But in return you say, that fellow has 2 cases of ganja. That fellow has this. And before that body is taken out for burial, you condemn that deceased, which is totally wrong. I mean, we respect the police, we are supportive of the police, but and that poor lady from Anuradhapura, that lady was sitting with her daughter, 2 young girls that family has, and if you speak bad about the father, okay, he might be the bad person, we don't say no, but let the investigation complete. As everybody says, until and unless you are found guilty, you are innocent.
Yeah, Mr. Rohana.
Yes, the first question, actually, most of the occasions we have recovered that weapons that had been used to commit that crime. It not provided by the police or the tri-forces, but generally it had been revealed that most of the weapon used by the terrorists, and from that area they came to the southern part of the country. So that is, it has been revealed by our investigations.
Right. Okay,
all
thank you.
Can't be that, no, Ajit.
Yes,
all can't be that, no.
99% of weapons.
This is our final break. We'll be right back with the final round. Stay with Face the Nation. This is the final round on Face the Nation. We're discussing crime and punishment, the imposition of death penalty and all the issues associated with it. My final question starts off with Mr. Peter Gunawardena, Deputy Director at Sri Lanka Customs. At the conclusion of this almost 2-hour debate, which has been quite productive, although time-consuming, in 1 minute, if you could improve a resource at Sri Lanka Customs in order to serve the people better, what would it be?
Firstly, I would like to say, in order to enable the customs to serve the society, society also has an obligation to provide necessary information about perpetrators of economic crime, about which customs is concerned. Secondly, I would like to urge that the capacity building exercises within the department should be enhanced. And thirdly, to have a marine division which the customs had before the terrorist war, which was made defunct due to security reasons. I again urge that to have a marine division for the customs department so that customs officers can engage in maritime surveillance in catching narcotic smugglers
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Gunawardena, for your thoughts. Mr. U.R. De Silva, President's Council, President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. We've had quite an intense debate on several issues pertaining to crime and punishment. Mr. De Silva, in order to prevent crime in a holistic manner, how does the Bar Association get involved in an innovative manner? We discussed several matters as well. And can you give an undertaking to work in collaboration with the Sri Lanka police to deploy attorneys at law across the island, across the 25 districts, because you are equipped with a large battalion of lawyers? Can you give us that undertaking?
Yes, Sonali, it is our duty. In fact, we must come forward, and we are doing it at the moment. So it is our duty to help the other institutions where they are trying to curtail. We can't prevent that. We have to curtail these crimes, and for that purpose, not only the police, we can't pinpoint the police and say you have to do this. No, not only the police, Attorney General's Department, and then the legislator also should take a role, and then thereafter we have to have that parents' unity, and they should look after their children, and we have to educate them. We must have some sort of mechanism where we should go to the schools and give them necessary programs to find out what are the laws available and what sort of things you should do. So for that purpose, we started that during our law week, and we are continuing to do that. Certainly, we are trying to help the society by coming forward to help the other institutions to curtail this crime.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Silva. Mr. Azad Solly, leader, National Unity Alliance. Mr. Solly, crime prevention is a multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder enterprise. As someone with a very vociferous voice and stand against this, how do you think we need to engage the multiple stakeholders? And I want you to specifically focus on the policymakers, because if the politicians don't have the political will to implement and enforce, then all these conversations just become mere rhetoric. How do we get these guys to actually do their job?
Sonali, the only problem is, since 1948, from the day of independence, we have never had a national policy on anything, no. We don't have a national policy. If the national policy is implemented, whatever government will come and go, that will be the main thing that will be there, and there will be no change. If just having an independent commission of the judiciary, independent police commission and all is not going to help. But you must allow it to function. You must give them the authority to do it. You must devolve more power on them. You must allow them to do it on their own, not interfere into those things. Then you can do it. Now, like the customs, he said, we need that, we need this. No. Customs is one place that can run the economy of this country. If the Sri Lanka custom officers will work 100% perfectly, we don't need to be borrowing money from any mother's son. Not from any country, not from any bank. We can do it because they have to do their duty. If duty is taken to the thing that is important to this country, more than enough. You don't need to do anything. The right thing, the best thing, and the best of duty will come in. Likewise, the police department, we have to give them the support. As I told you, police station must be given with all the facilities, and it must be made easier.
So these facilities are not being given by the politicians, the policy makers themselves. How do we get these guys to do that?
No, Sonali, it's not like that. Nobody is going to come and give you anything unless you ask for it. You have to have your demand. Now you have a minister.
Has the police department not brought to the attention of the authorities the issues faced by the police department? You have.
Yes, Sonali. Okay, one small thing. A computer is about 80,000 rupees. Right? In a police station area, how many business establishment, like you said, a citizens front in that area, that could provide that. We will do it. We will take the initiative to do with the police. Every area we can have a citizens front. That citizens front will provide 3 computers, not one, will provide 3 computers to each police station. They can do it. Get the best people, because police department, now they are more worried about giving the positions to the politicians, MSD and PSD. Now it went to cabinet, came back, returned. Why? President said, no, do it in a more transparent manner. What happened? Now they are asking everybody, you must fill in the form. Why? Just to say no to their promotion, but to accommodate their people. So these things could not happen like that. What we want is transparent. Everything should happen transparently so that this country will improve. All of us, why are we all shouting here? To see that this country comes up in a better, this thing, not to allow the politician to rob the country.
For your thoughts and for giving that undertaking. We will hold you to it. Ms. Ajit Rohana, my final question for tonight is to you, and you have 1 minute to answer. Given all the issues that were discussed during these 2 hours and 2 minutes, are you agreeable to the concept of looking at solving problems, crime prevention in an innovative manner by implementing some new methodologies, at least to start off with in your area, the Western Province North, like we discussed, Neighborhood Watch, then Alcoholics Anonymous, Drug Addicts Anonymous. Can you do that?
Yes, we have already implemented, that type of committees at village level.
Okay.
So we can do it, but the other stakeholders, so they should support us, especially the religious leaders, parents, teachers, everyone. And in addition to that, I would like to say that we have completed 153 years, and we have been serving the nation for a period of 153 years, and every time we have been dedicated to preserve peace and law in this country. But every time, sometimes, the very few people in our organization, they have some bad practices, but the majority, every time, we are willing to serve the nation. So therefore, think every time that police is not an enemy. Every time we are friends of the general public of this country.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your thoughts, your perspectives. Today we'd like to thank, on behalf of Face the Nation, our guests who shared their thoughts and perspectives with us. Mr. Azad Solly, leader of the National Unity Alliance. Thank you for being with us on the show. Also like to thank DIG in charge of the Western Province North, Mr. Ajit Rohana, attorney at law. Thank you for representing the Sri Lanka Police. We'd also like to thank Mr. Peter Gunawardena, Deputy Director of Sri Lanka Customs, for your presence here tonight. And last but not least, Mr. UR De Silva, President's Council, President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much, Sonali, for giving us this opportunity.
Absolutely. And for asking all the right questions, I'd like to thank Charita Fernando, Nadim Majid and Charlene Benedict. Tonight's conversation focused on the complexities surrounding crime and punishment, the imposition of the death penalty. It's not a discipline that can be taken in isolation. There are socio-political, socio-economic, religious and cultural factors governing it. But I think, did discuss some of the new ways in which we can look at crime prevention. Thanks so much for your time, for the questions posed as well. Thank you and good night.